Hi, welcome to Polyphonic Press. I'm Jeremy Boyd, and it's been a while since you've seen my face. You've heard my voice doing the podcast, but this is a new segment that I want to try. Basically, I've missed doing videos, and the podcast that John and I that we do, that's not going anywhere anytime soon. We've got thousands of albums that we are going to listen to and discover. This is really more back in January I got really interested in collecting vinyl for the first time. It's sort of a new hobby, sort of had some changes in my personal life, and I sort of rediscovering the things that I like. And one of the things that I discovered is I actually really enjoy vinyl and collecting vinyl. And so I thought I really missed making videos on Polyphonic Press, and so I thought this would be a good opportunity to sort of make a new segment. And I'm calling it, I think I'm going to call it Coffee and Vinyl with Jeremy, because I'm going to be filming these it's Sunday morning that I'm filming these. And my goal is to buy at least one new record every week. And I would like to make a video out of it, if you'll come along with me on this journey. So I thought, what better way to start off this new video series than to talk about my favorite album of all time, which is Damn the Torpedoes by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. This is the album that made me realize that music is going to be my thing. So this album was released in November of 1979, and at the time of its release, so Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, well, Tom Petty had a band in Gainesville, Florida called Mudcrutch. And at the time of the release of this album, that band broke up due to various circumstances. They put out one single called Depot Street that just went nowhere. They released their self-titled debut album in 1976. And in 77, a song from that album called Anything That's Rock and Roll was a hit in England. The album wasn't really doing anything in the United States, but in England it became a big hit with that single. And it's weird because that album has Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' two of their most well-known songs, with American Girl and Breakdown. But this album was the one that broke them. This is the one that made them a star. So what was leading up to this album is they released the debut album, they released the follow-up, which was You're Gonna Get It. And through that process, they were on a record label called Shelter Records. And Shelter Records was run by this guy named Denny Cordell. And Denny Cordell produced the first two albums by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. But what they found out was the album, or the record company, was going bankrupt. And essentially, they were being sold to MCA Records. And part of the contract that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers had was that they could not be transferred to another record label without their consent. And what happened was, once they found that out, they went to court over that. And they successfully, it was the first time any musician had declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And basically what it meant was, because the record company was taking basically all of the royalties from all the songwriting publishing as well as the record sales, basically the artist and the songwriter, which was Tom Petty, and Mike Campbell, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers guitarist, they were not making any money off of the either the recordings or the songs themselves. So basically they declared bankruptcy, and they could, if they proved that they could declare bankruptcy and that there was no way that they could pay the record company back the advance that they had been given, all the contracts were void. And if they could void all contracts, they became free agents, which gave them bargaining power, huge bargaining power. And at the time of this release, it was quite actually uncertain whether this album was they were going to get made. It was going to get made because their manager Elliot Roberts was putting up the money for it. But there was question of whether the album was going to even be released. It's a miracle that this album came out at all. This is the album that, for me personally, got me into music and obsessed with music. So John, we do the podcast together, and his dad was a musician and he was really into music, and for whatever reason, you know how some kids will be into like dinosaurs, or they'll be obsessed with one thing. For whatever reason, John's thing was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And so when I met John when I think we were maybe 7 or 8 years old, the question came up, well, like, what music do you like? 8-year-olds talking about music, but it really was that discussion. The question came up, well, like, what kind of music do you like? What do you listen to? And his thing was, well, do you know Tom Petty? And I said, well, yeah, I think my dad has a couple of his CDs at home. My parents were members of this thing called Columbia House, which was like a mail order CD thing. You pay like a couple bucks and you get, some CDs sent to you in the mail. So my dad had bought a few CDs that way. So the two CDs were Into the Great Wide Open and Wildflowers, which I'll be talking about later on this segment. It'll be a future video. So I listened to those two albums and I really liked them. But my dad said, well, if you like those, you'll probably like Damn the Torpedoes. So he went into storage and dug out his tape collection from when he was like in his late teens and early 20s, and gave me Damn the Torpedoes, and I put it on my Walkman that I got for like my 7th birthday or something like that. And I just, as soon as I heard the drum intro of Refugee, those huge drums, as soon as I heard those, that's when I knew that music was going to be my thing. So this is a really significant album for me. And, it's been my favorite album ever since. It's been my favorite album since I was 7 years old. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've played this thing. You've got it's so hard to pick standout tracks. I mean, every song is great. I mean, Refugee, Here Comes My Girl, Century City, Don't Do Me Like That, You Tell Me, What Are You Doing in My Life, Louisiana Rain. The whole album to me is perfect. I remember looking at the cover of the album and thinking that Tom Petty was the coolest looking guy in the world, and I wanted to look like him. And this guitar that he's holding on the cover, it's a Rickenbacker 625, and it actually belongs to Mike Campbell, the guitar player in the Heartbreakers. And it's actually cool because this guitar, so the story goes that they were looking for a 12-string sound on their second album, and there was a newspaper called The Recycler, which sold is basically a paper version of Craigslist. So people would list items for sale and things like that. And so they would, he saw a Rickenbacker 12-string for sale. And so he went to the guy and he wanted the big one, which is like Roger McGuinn and George Harrison, the semi-hollow body or I think it's hollow body, the big 330 or 360. And he was a little disappointed because it wasn't the one that he wanted. So he bought it anyway, and he just fell in love with the sound of it. But the thing is, this is actually a prototype for the 620 model. This is considered the 625. There are some slight differences. The 620 has high gain pickups, the R tailpiece, and different knobs. Those are the only differences. But this was a prototype for that. So, and what they looked at, when he took the guitar later to the Rickenbacker factory, they looked at the serial number and discovered that it was the one after the iconic George Harrison Rickenbacker, the next one that they made. So he basically got what he wanted without really knowing. It's just funny how that sort of thing happens. The sonic quality on this album is unreal. It's high fidelity to the max. It was produced by Jimmy Iovine, and Jimmy Iovine didn't produce the first two. The first two albums were produced by Denny Cordell, and they were looking for a new producer on their third album, and they wanted to get a sound that was similar. There was an album out by Patti Smith, her third album called Easter, and there was the single from that, which was probably her biggest hit, was called Because the Night. And it was an unusual drum sound for the time, and when they heard that, they wanted to get that drum sound on their next album. So they found the producer. It was produced by Jimmy Iovine and more importantly, engineered by Shelley Yakis. So that's how they ended up with this huge drum sound. And then after this album came out, for like a couple of years, everybody was imitating this drum sound. And it's funny, a lot of people associate the 80s drum sound with like the gated reverb, like the Peter Gabriel sort of drum sound, and that is very much associated with the 1980s. But there was a while when this drum sound, with that huge sort of bassy snare sound, from 1979 to like 83, this drum sound was all over the place. So there are, I mean, every song is pretty much perfect, but I mean, Shadow of a Doubt is probably my favorite song on the album if I had to pick one. But like Century City is a great rock song. By the way, Century City and What Are You Doing in My Life both have the same song structure. If you listen, it has a bridge, the verse, chorus, but the bridge, guitar solo, and then back into the bridge after the guitar solo. It's the same song structure, those two songs, which is kind of cool. And it's an unusual song structure. So it's not like they were like copying anybody. They were just, copying themselves, really. Really, I could honestly talk about this album. I could talk about this album forever, basically. The way that Ron Blair and Stan Lynch, Ron Blair's the bass player, Stan Lynch is the drummer, the way that the two of them play off of each other is really, really incredible. I mean, Benmont Tench, the organ sound on Don't Do Me Like That was recorded, so it's not a Hammond organ, but it's, I don't know what organ they used, but he was meant to turn on the Leslie speaker to get a tremolo sound in certain parts in Don't Do Me Like That. Well, when they recorded it, they forgot to do that. So instead of re-recording the part, they got this genius idea of putting a piece of adhesive tape on one of the capstans on the tape machine when they recorded it, and it sort of bounced the tape off of the record head, so it just basically there's no information there. it's just it's a tape effect with just like a little sliver of not being recorded. That's how they got the tremolo sound for Don't Do Me Like That. I mean, the Heartbreakers are one of the best bands in the world. I love Steve Ferroni, and I think he's an incredible drummer, but Stan Lynch makes such he has such an incredible feel. He plays behind the beat, plays with a swing that really just fit in with the music, and they really had a hard time. Jimmy Iovine and Stan Lynch really didn't get along. I think he was fired a couple of times when they were making this album, and whenever they would bring in another drummer, it just they just said, well, we gotta bring Stan back because it's just not working. So anyway, that's Damn the Torpedoes. This is my first time reviewing a vinyl record. I guess I should show the record. It comes with this cool sleeve, kind of a funny video, or a funny photo of them on the back, and then a cool picture of Tom on the other side of the sleeve. And then the record. The record's not that interesting, really. The label is just this gray, sort of, this gray label. But yeah, no, that's the record. It came out on Backstreet Records, and by the way, they resolved everything, and they created a label at MCA called Backstreet Records to distribute Tom Petty's music. And so yeah, so that's Damn the Torpedoes. Thank you so much for listening. I know this is a little bit jumbled, but thank you so much for watching. And if you made it this far, let me know in the comments what you think. These videos will probably get better from here. I'm a little new to this, and I thought I would start off with my favorite album because this is it's an easy album for me to talk about. But yeah, I'm planning on getting I can afford one new vinyl record every week. So I'm going to be posting these videos once a week. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I didn't stumble my words too much. But yeah, the podcast will be out on Tuesdays, and this will hopefully be up every Thursday. So yeah, I'm hoping to do that. Thank you so much for watching, and you can click all the links below if you want to check out the podcast. We've got a Patreon set up for that if you feel like helping out there. No pressure. If not, I know times are tough right now. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time and see what album I'm going to be reviewing. And let me know if you have any. Honestly, feedback would be great. If you have any tips or things you would like me to see, yeah, honestly, any feedback is welcome. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.